Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Big Four, an Indonesian action comedy from 2022 that was directed by Timo Tjahjanto. After the elder leader of a vigilante group is assassinated, his team attempts to regroup while the victim's daughter, a policewoman, attempts to find the culprit, a man who has dispatched a group of hitmen that are on her trail. Now, when you hear Timo Tjahjanto's name attached to a project, you will likely expect either a horror movie or an action movie. He's been directing or co-directing horror movies since the late 2000s, and in recent years has expanded his talents into action thriller hybrids, the best of which is The Night Comes For Us. But The Big Four, on the other hand, is an action comedy. And I think this is very important to point out, because if you go into this movie expecting The Night Comes For Us Part 2, you may come away disappointed. The action sequences are not quite as awesome as the best stuff in The Night Comes For Us. However, the action in The Big Four is good and entertaining in its own way. Timo knows how to shoot action, so the camera work is effective, and there are some legitimately good action moments. Obviously, as a viewer, though, you need to go into this movie with the expectation of a little bit of goofiness and humor mixed in, which is different for this director. It takes itself seriously enough, but there is a healthy sprinkling of comedy in this film. Now, in terms of the action, very early on, we get a short fight involving our protagonists, a small group of vigilantes who perform a sting operation to take down a corrupt children's orphanage that's being used as a front for human trafficking and or black market organ theft. Pretty good opening scene. You have a nice little mix of different types of action in this, as I'll get to. But later on, one of our protagonists needs to fight off two thugs in the back room of a hotel, while at the same time preventing the policewoman from suspecting that a conflict is happening. And I got some Jackie Chan vibes from this particular scene, and it was moderately amusing. Probably the most humorous fight in the film. After some other effective battles and conflicts, we get the big finale, where we get three separate one-on-one fights that are legitimately good. Some cool moves thrown in here and there, and it creates an even more satisfying action experience at that point. Now, I would say that this is more traditional in its action design. Relying on shootouts quite a bit, explosive weaponry, and also mixing in some hand-to-hand fighting. But it does lack the, intense adrenaline rush that some of the more recent Indonesian action films from the last decade or so have provided us. But, on the other hand, it has a high quantity of action, and it has effective enough fight choreography and enough bloody violence to satisfy. So it's a little bit difficult to describe because you get some of those elements from The Night Comes For Us in terms of the bloody violence and some of the precise action choreography. But because of the black humor and the sprinkling of comedy, the tone is very different. It's much lighter, so you don't get that intense, that feeling of intensity, as much. But hey, the director's trying to do something different here, right? He's trying to create a fun experience, so to speak, with a lighter tone. And the comedy is a little bit wacky, a little bit nutty. For example, there's a scene where one of our protagonists accidentally takes a hallucinogenic drug and then trips out, and some of the other characters have to control her from doing something really bad. But none of the comedy is backed up really by great script writing, which, so it's lacking in those clever moments that you would get from any of the fantastic Japanese comedy films that I've covered on this channel over the years. But I will say this. The thing that kind of saves a comedy in this are the actors. And I'm familiar with a few of the actors in here, but some of the actors I've never seen before. And they really sell it, and they go for it. And I think that was really important for this film. The characters are lively, they have personality, everyone brings energy to the film, which really helps because if the acting was flat, it would have been a problem. There are sections of the film that consists primarily of, like, the cop lady going into a village and meeting the different vigilantes over a period of time, and her straight-laced, like, serious personality is kind of, it contrasts with their freewheeling, quirky attitudes, you know what I mean? And even though the jokes themselves are nothing special, the scenes are still fun to watch because the actors are kind of giving it their all. And I think that was good. That was good. Now, despite a fairly long runtime of 2 hours and 21 minutes, The Big Four is still paced pretty well. There's a pretty solid amount of action, and when there's not action, it's usually going for humor. And even though it lacks like that instant classic impact of something like The Night Comes For Us, it is consistently entertaining. It's just an entertaining movie. I enjoyed it, and I will gladly rewatch it at another point in the near future. So the ending kind of sets up a sequel if they want to do one, and if they did one, I would be happy. But still, you know, in the list of priorities, I think we really need that Night Comes For Us spin-off with Julia Estelle in the lead role. That's the one that a lot of people want, myself included. But we'll have to see if the funding comes in for that film, because I think Timo wants to do it as well. So that would be my number one request from Timo. But this, hey, if he decided to do a sequel to this, I would definitely watch it. I recommend this movie, currently available on Netflix. And as always, I will see you next time.